Yan, magandang hapon. Hello, hello po sa ating lahat and welcome Luzon, Visayas and Mindanao. Para sa ating mga kapatid na Kapampangan, mayapat kapanapon na imbagamalem sa mga Ilocano, masantos siyangaren sa mga taga-Pangasinan at syempre sa mga kapatid nating taga Bicol, marhay na hapon. At hindi syempre, hindi natin kakalimutan ating mga kapatid na nasa Visayas ngayon, maayong hapon, maupay nga kulop, maayong ugto, ang ating mga kapatid from Mindanao. Assalamualaikum. Malingkat, kahapon, mapiya kautunga alungan, and syempre, buenas tardes. O, di ba ang ating mga Espanyol na kapatid sa malayong lupain ng Mindanao. Welcome sa ating SDG Action Hour at syempre magandang hapon sa aking co-host, Mr. Mark Flores. Good afternoon. Naka-mute ka, Brad.
Ayan, nalimutan kong pindutin, isda.
Okay
Okay.
lang.
Going back, magandang hapon po, Miss Da, at magandang hapon po sa ating lahat at sa ating mga banyagang panauhin. Good afternoon. Anyong sayo. Konnichiwa. Salamat siyang Wang Chiwao. At welcome po sa ating mga regular na tagapakinig at tagapanood sa Zoom at Facebook Live. Hello po sa inyong lahat.
Yes, magandang hapon uli sa iyo, partner. No, welcome sa ating ika-anim na putsyam or 69th episode ng the Filipino Sustainable Development Goals or SDG Action Hour. Ito yung ating lingguhang kumustahan, kwentuhan para sa maganda, maayos, mabuti at makabuluhang kinabukasan. Ito isang oras ng hitik na talakayan. Yung mga pang topic na talagang at usapin na talagang napapanahong pag-usapan. Alam mo, Bumark, very special ang hapon natin ngayon, ang ating talakayan dahil meron tayong dalawang special guests at ang topic na pag-uusapan ng dalawa nating special guests ay talagang very interesting at marami tayong matututunan. Ang ating mga panauhin ay talaga namang expert when it comes to their respective fields.
Ay, tama po kayo dyan, Miss Dada. It's very interesting at ang mga topic na mapapakinggan natin sa hapong ito. Ang una po nating maririnig ay may kinalalaman sa inumin na paboritong lahat. Walaan nyo kung ano to. Siyempre, kape.
Mm,
Kabataan man
yes.
o mga katulad naming mga young ones. Sa hapong ito, mapapakinggan din natin ang topic na Barlig Rainforest Coffee, piloting rainforest coffee production.
Wow, Mark, excited ako. Alam mo ba kung bakit? Gusto ko
Bakit, Miss
talagang
Da?
marigihan kasi mahilig talaga din ako sa kape, no? Pero equally interesting din yung ating pangalawang topic na pinamagatang Summer is Getting Hotter, a glimpse of the Philippine Heat Index. Nako, kailangan natin malaman niya kasi init-init na talaga ng
Ay,
panahon ngayon.
sobra, sobra,
I'm
Miss Da.
sure. Yes, and I'm sure lahat tayo gusto natin malaman gaano pa kainit ang ating panahon no kumpara sa mga nakaraang taon at malalaman din siguro natin mas iinit pa ba o may pag-asa pa bang lumamig-lamig ng konti.
Sana nga, Miss Da, kasi sobra talagang init ng panahon ngayon. At gusto ko rin pong marinig ang ating mga topic sa hapong ito kasi parehong makabuluhan at siguradong marami tayong matututunan.
Ay, sigurado yan, Mark, ano? At alam mo, pag kape ang pinag-uusapan, share ko lang sa'yo. Sa bahay namin, Mark, lahat kami mahilig magkape, no? Yung mga grown-ups children ko. Kaso kami ng husband ko, mahilig kami sa mainit na kape. Kahit na mainit ang panahon, ewan ko ba kung bakit, baka nakagawian na lang yan, ano? Pero yung aming mga anak, mahilig din sa kape, pero iced coffee ang gusto nila, no? Talagang gumagawa sila ng iced coffee. Alam natin na may Benguet coffee, di ba? Pero
Tama.
sa akin parang ngayon ko lang narinig ang Barlig coffee, no? Yung Barlig coffee na nanggaling sa Barlig Mountain Province, no? Alam niyo yung Barlig na yun malapit sa Bontoc at famous din sila sa kanilang sariling rice terraces.
Tama yan, Miss Da. Actually, nabanggit mo yung Barley Coffee. Ako kasi laki akong Laguna, kaya mas familiar lang ako sa kaping barako ng Batangas. Ito nga,
Ah,
sample. Magkape tayo.
ayan.
Miss
Sarap
Dada,
yan. Pero palagay ko pagkatapos ng presentation ng ating speaker, bibigyan tayo ng barley coffee.
sana nga. Kaya nga,
Ipapadaan niya dito sa screen.
kaya nga excited na rin akong marinig ang ating susunod na speaker. Napakabata pa po ng ating speaker pero he has already shown his unwavering commitment and passion for promoting the conservation of his tribe's forest in Barlig Mountain Province, pati na rin ang pag-promote ng kultura ng kanilang Lias tribe. Ang ating guest ay nagsulong ng suspension ng road project sa Barlig Forest dahil naniniwala siya na ang kalsadang ito ang magbubukas sa mga kagubatan ng Barlig that will lead to its forest exploitation. Ang kanyang coffee farming techniques ay through permaculture, kaya organic ito, surrounded by forest, nearby creeks and small brooks, and heavy rains, especially during the cold months, keep the coffee trees watered. So natural din ang kanyang irrigation system. The forest itself fertilizes the coffee and provides moisture so the soil doesn't dry out.
Wow, talagang gusto ko nang marinig yan. Pero alam mo ba, Mark, na yung ating unang guest speaker ay graduate ng Development Communication. Pero ang puso niya ay nakatalaga para maging isang mahusay na farmer o magsasaka. Gusto ko nang marinig yung preservation techniques ng ating guest. So, introduce na natin siya, no? Friends, let us listen to his presentation entitled Barlig Rainforest Coffee, Piloting Rainforest Coffee Production. Please welcome our first speaker for this afternoon. Individual awardee po siya ng Gawad Bayani ng Kalikasan in 2022, which was given by the Center for Environmental Concerns of the Philippines. Let us all welcome Mr. Daniel Jason Maches. Good afternoon po, Mr. Maches.
Hello, my RQ Takuan in. Good day to everyone. So it is but my pleasure and honor to be a part of this meaningful event for us to showcase sustainability and how important it is really to the Filipino people. So medyo kinakabahan ako kasi I'm seeing some familiar faces whom I used to work with when I was with the Future Earth Philippines. But still, I am grateful, especially to Dr. Lily Cruz for inviting me to give a presentation about what we are doing in Barlig. As humble or as small as it is, though we believe that in the future we will be able to scale this project and hopefully create bigger impacts with regards to sustainability. So again, I am honored to be here, and I guess before we start with my presentation, I just like to show a short video just for you to have a glimpse of our locality and what we are doing there. So here goes.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Maches.
So we've planted the coffee under an established forest. So if you look at it, we have a variety of tall trees that provide shading for the coffee. The leaves falling from these trees also serve as fertilizer. So this is one of the coffee that we've planted here, and if you look at it, the leaves are green. They're healthy. Like what I've mentioned, here at the farm, we don't use any chemical fertilizers. We want everything to be organic. So for example, we use sunflower as a source of nitrogen for our plants. We also intercrop banana because this is a rich source of potassium. Potassium helps the plant to be able to yield more cherries.
Okay, so I hope that through that video you have now an overview of Barley Grain Forest Coffee and what we are doing there. So for now, we'll be dipping deeper into our advocacy, into what we are doing on the ground. So just this disclaimer po, I'm not an academician, I'm not a PhD holder, but I really just have this passion to plant coffee and use coffee to be able to contribute in conserving or protecting the forest of my hometown, Barlig in Mountain Province. Right. So, for us to understand more our motivation, why we are doing Barley Grain Forest Coffee, I think it's important for us to have a background of our locality. So, Barlig, where we are doing this project, is a municipality in Mountain Province. I'm not sure if some of us are familiar with Barlig. Maybe we know it as the hometown of Carrotman, aka Jeric Sigmaton, or it's also the place where you can find Mount Amuyao, one of the highest peaks in the Philippines. But little do most people know that it's also dubbed as the last ecological frontier of Mountain Province. Why? Because that's where you can find some of the last remaining dipterocarp and mossy forests, which, as we know, more than 90% of these have been wiped out of the Philippines ever since the colonial period began. So thankfully, we still have in Barley, thanks to conservation efforts rooting from our indigenous practice. So estimatedly, up to this time, 85 to 90% of the total land area of Barley consists of rainforest, from the Torcarp to lower mountain and upper mountain forest, up to a point, 2,700 meters above sea level, that we still have bonsai forests, as they call it. So Barley is also home to critically endangered species, including the Philippine eagle. And the forests of Barlig are important sources or feed numerous river systems, particularly Tanudan River and Magat River, which are not only irrigating rice paddies or farms in Barlig, but all the way to the lowlands of Isabela and Cagayan. So coming from just a very remote municipality, you could already see the impact that it has thanks to the conserved or the pristine forest condition in Barlig. So I'll be showing you some pictures of what really Barlig's rainforest looks like. Yeah, so at the right, this is just a snapshot of a portion of Barlig's forest. It's shot from an elevation of more than 1,800 meters above sea level. And from here, you could see the vastness of it, the vastness of the rainforest. Our elders used to say that when you are at this point, you could hear the the call of the Philippine eagle, the hawks, and other species, some of which are rarely heard nowadays. So there you also find Lias Village. This is where we are particularly piloting this project because this is where I'm from. So Barlig, by the way, is composed of three clusters. We have Lias, we have Centro, and we have Kadaklan. And it is here in Lias where we are currently implementing our Rainforest Coffee project, which we hope to be able to replicate in other areas, not just in Barlig, but beyond. So if you go inside the rainforest of Barlig, this is what you'll find. You'll find towering hardwood trees like white lawaan, red lawaan, nara, apitong, etc. You also see the biggest flowers in the world called Rafflesia, and as they say, there are multiple species of Rafflesia in Lias, but this remains to be documented and mainstream for public awareness. At the rightmost part of the slide, you'll see kind of looking like a grapes, but hindi to grapes. This is one of the species of figs that are found in our forests. And so we also have the giant almasiga. They say that this is the tallest tree species in the Philippines, reaching up to 60 meters high. But what really interests me most with almasiga is how important it is as a habitat for the Philippine eagle. Sabi ng mga elders namin, this is for lawi or the Philippine eagle's nest or breed. And that's how important it is. Plus, of course, its role in maintaining soil stability to prevent landslides and soil erosion, as well as its function in providing ecological services, not just for humans, but for the wildlife species. Yeah. So at the right side of the slide, you'll find Sayang Mossy Forest. This is really one of the underrated but critically important ecosystems in Lias or in Barlig. It's a valley. It's up to 2,000 meters above sea level, and it's home to what we locally call bonsai forest, because here you'll find stunted trees that are of diverse species. And when you are on a particular ridge, hunters say that they can often see mga baboy ramo, mga deers that are just running around on the forest floor. That's how visible they are because of the stunted vegetation. And that's how rich this forest is. Unfortunately, just like in other areas across the Philippines and of course in Mountain Province, we are also seeing the degradation of our rainforest and its biodiversity, primarily, of course, with the introduction of different developmental projects that lacks consideration for environmental sustainability. We also have uncontrolled hunting, poaching, illegal logging, etc. All of these are contributing to deterioration of our forests. And of course, add to this as well, commercial agriculture, monocropping in particular, that requires the total clearing of forests to be able to plant crops. So for example, since high school, I've really seen this trend of how our forests are being wiped out to give way to citrus plantation, which is of course understandable because people need income, and citrus is the most viable income that they can see, and that has been introduced at that time. But sadly, with citrus production, that requires total forest clearing and excessive use of chemical inputs in order to thrive. Although I believe that it can be done in a more sustainable fashion. Yeah, so I really had this idea when I was working in Manila that what if I'll be able, that time kasi nagsasawa na ako sa office work, I realized that it's not really something for me to be working in an office for the longest time. I really wanted to do something to give back sa aming community. So I've thought of what can I do in our community, a project perhaps that aligns with our advocacy of rainforest conservation, at the same time promoting our cultural integrity as indigenous people. And so I've thought of starting a coffee farm. Coffee is something not new naman sa akin kasi we grew up sa community namin now that has a lot of coffee trees, Arabica, century-old Typica Arabica that was introduced by the Spaniards. So that time kasi hindi namin nakikita yung value ng coffee. We just use it as a toy. Pinipitas namin, tapos tinatapon namin sa isa't isa. That was our childhood play using coffee. But then lately, of course, with our exposure sa Manila, especially with specialty coffee, our connection, our introduction to different coffee shops and cafes dito, that's where I got to see really the value of coffee, especially now. There's a growing demand, not just for coffee, but specialty, naturally grown, organic, and sustainable coffee. And so that's what sort of an awakening for me that coffee has been growing in our community. I guess it's something that we can revitalize with my fellow advocates in Barligs. That's why Barlig Rainforest Coffee came into the forefront. And note that rainforest is at the heart of it because we know that protecting or preserving the rainforest is really critical to ensuring the sustainability of our coffee farm. At the same time, giving extra benefits as to sustaining the ecological services na napapakinabangan ng aming community all the way to the lowlands of Region 2. So, Barlig Rainforest Coffee aims to reverse deforestation and biodiversity decline through ecological-based coffee farming. Of course, there are technical terms or there are jargons here that are quite scientific, we should say. But I so believe that these are nothing new. These are concepts that's not new because as indigenous people, we've been practicing this sustainability as at the heart of our practice and identity as indigenous people. It's only now lately that we are now having these terms as agroforestry, afforestation, sustainability, ecological based farming. But this have been done in the past, especially among indigenous people, not just in Barlig, but elsewhere. And so we are basically putting the advocacy of environmental and cultural in this project. Yeah, so a little bit of background. So Barley Rainforest Coffee is a pilot project that aims to promote coffee production vis-a-vis rainforest preservation and cultural integrity promotion. Really, our motivation for doing this is because as indigenous people, we believe that land is life. And when we say land, we are not only referring to the soil, but also to the plants, the fauna, the forest as a whole, of course, the microorganisms that's there, everything that's there, whether matter or energy, including the rivers that comes from the forest. We consider that as land, and land is integral to our survival as indigenous people. And I so believe in this because for the longest time, our community, Lias in particular, or Barlig, have been self-sustaining, have been self-sufficient. We didn't have to have external source to have food on the table or to be able to meet our needs. Everything is there. And that is possible is because we are taking care of the rivers, of the forest. Kaya may mga wildlife kami nahuhuli, kaya may meat kami. We have countless species of plants in the forest where we get our medicine. And of course, the different species of the different aquatic species on our rivers that we are taking care because this is where we get giant eels, fishes, etc. All of this contributing to a varied and healthy diet. And of course, thanks to our forests, we're able to grow food on our rice terraces using organic principles. We don't have to use synthetic inputs to be able to have a productive and sustainable farm. Okay, so basically that's the benchmark where we are laying the foundation of Barley Rainforest Coffee. So the farm, our pilot farm is located in Sitio Cabawa, Barangay Lias Canluran, Barlig Mountain Province. It has an elevation of 1,300 meters above sea level to 1,500 meters above sea level. This is high and it's ideal for Arabica coffee, which we are planting sa aming pilot farm. So just to give a background, we have 4 species of coffee. We have Arabica, we have Robusta, which is the most common, which is used by Nestle and other multinational corporations. We have Liberica, this is the authentic Barako, and we have Excelsa. At the farm, we have at least 10 varieties of Arabica, especially the Tipica, the Bourbon, the Catimor, the Pacamara, the Mundo Novo, etc. So the variety is because we want to see really what variety is fit for our place and what can produce more cherries, what is more resilient to pests and diseases, and what is more fitting as a coffee under the rainforest. So it's still a work in progress. We don't claim it's a perfect model. We are still having some mishaps, but at the same time, we are learning from these experiences. Yeah. So why rainforest coffee? Where did we get this idea? Coffee by default grows from the native forest of Ethiopia. And when I learned it, gosh, I guess this is really something that we can implement in Barlig because Barlig is almost entirely forest. So what crop could we possibly introduce? And that's coffee. Thankfully, it's not just in Ethiopia. We are also seeing increasing models of rainforest coffee across Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia. This only means to show that in varied locations or in different geographical terrains, rainforest coffee is possible. You can restore denuded mountains and come up with a forest ecosystem with coffee as your pilot crop alongside native trees. Yeah. So our goals and objectives is number 1, to preserve the rainforest and its biodiversity to ensure sustained ecological services. Of course, somewhat we are all familiar now with the importance of forests, that it prevents landslide, it prevents floods, it prevents other environmental disasters that's happening around that. We know that because our mountains in Sierra Madre or in, let's say, in Marikina, in the uplands of Marikina are denuded. That's why we are having a massive flooding here in Manila from time to time, or because we've logged the mountains of Sierra Madre or Samar or on the Bukidnon Highlands that we are having water scarcity. I mean, it's kind of obvious now thanks to social media, and we are learned people, so we are seeing this happening really. So that's really our goal because, as I've shared earlier, rainforest is critical to ensuring the ecological services that our coffee needs in order to grow and thrive, from nutrient cycling, from the moisture, from protection from strong typhoons, from winds, from too much rains and sun, etc. So basically what we are doing is to integrate coffee into the rainforest setting so that it becomes a part of the rainforest. And so it becomes of that balance, it becomes a part of that balanced ecosystem wherein each species is interacting in order for each species to grow and thrive. And that's what we are doing with coffee. So for this objective, I believe that we are targeting at least three sustainable development goals. Um, we have good health and well-being. I think it's a common fact that forests are have that healing effect on humans. When you walk in that forest into a forest, you really have the sense of peace and fulfillment and relaxation. I don't know. I guess because it's kind of the pasture where God wants us to thrive, so we feel that unique peace. Of course, we also have climate action. I believe that directly protecting rainforest or reforestation is directly contributing to climate change mitigation and adaptation, because basically the diversity of because basically rainforests are one of the most important ecosystems that sequester carbon from the atmosphere. And so by protecting their established rainforests and planting more rainforests, we are allowing our areas or our localities to absorb more carbon and eventually help mitigate or adapt to climate change and its devastating impacts. And of course, life on land. In our rainforest farm, you will find a variety of wildlife species. Like for example, that one that I'm holding, that's one of the multiple snake species there at the farm. And whenever we see one, hindi namin pinapatay. We let it stay there because we know that this snake, for example, feeds on rat, that feeds on some of our crops aside from coffee. And you know that kind of balance is already there thanks to this wildlife species. So of course, add to that the fauna that we know that we are convinced are critical to maintaining a healthy farm, right? Okay, preserve our indigenous knowledge systems relevant to agriculture and forest sustainability. Of course, it's a given that our ancestors have been farmers, tilling the mountains, planting rice on terraces for centuries. And so somewhat they've evolved or developed practices relevant to agriculture. And take note that by default, all of these are organic, natural, and don't require external inputs in order to thrive. They just use whatever that's available locally in order to make their farms productive. Like for example, we have some locally termed species that we use, locally termed species that we use in order to fertilize our rice terraces. We have this wild sunflower. Sorry, I forgot the term. We also have this koleplep, that's nitrogen fixing. All of these are locally available, right? So really, I believe that IKS are not obsolete, although so many people say that move on with IKS, have these modern innovations. No, no, no. If our IKS were able to sustain our ancestors for generations to come, despite the changing dynamics, despite the changing, you know, a lot of changes, and until now they are still self-sustaining. That means that IKS are effective in ensuring food security, food productivity, or agricultural productivity. And that's where we are taking inspiration and incorporating some of our IKS on agriculture into our farming practices at the Barley Grain Forest Coffee Farm. So I believe that for this second goal or objective, we are hitting number one, no poverty, zero hunger, and sustainable cities and communities. While some media may portray remote communities or indigenous communities as somewhat poor, not necessarily, especially in the north, you really find a lot of self-sustaining communities thanks to preserve rainforests and other natural ecosystems. That's why there's no poverty, there's zero hunger, because they're basically producing food that are healthy, heirloom, organic, and that's adaptable to the local condition. So we could say that these are models of sustainable communities that we can replicate and we can learn from. Yeah. Right. So provide sustainable livelihood for the community. Of course, this is still a work in progress. As of now, we are still working with the youths in our community to be able to establish this farm and to continue scaling it up. So at the same time that we involve them as helpers of the farm, we are also capacitating them on why we are doing this. Why are we not clearing the forest? Why are we preserving the forest? Why are we maintaining the biodiversity or the wildlife? We are capacitating them on that part so that they themselves would see how beneficial it is to protect the rainforest, not just in coffee, but in food in general, that they may also be inspired to replicate this model in their own farm. So for this part, I believe that we are targeting also zero hunger, decent work and economic growth, peace, justice, and strong institutions. In fact, for this part, I'm not just involving youths from our locality, but also youths from other tribes because we wanted to see really the harmony to bring reconciliation. Because in the past, there have been a lot of tribal wars, but now through coffee, we are trying to establish peace, starting with our youths whom we are engaging with. Yeah, and so of course, we also, yeah, as I said, we also want to empower the youths to become champions of forest preservation and cultural integrity, which is, I believe, directly addressing climate action. Um, Climate change, is a global problem, but I believe that we can have more impacts when we do grassroots solutions, when we do local-based solutions involving the participation of the grassroots people, maybe be farmers, fishermen, or whatever sector that they are in. And of course, the youth. And so, really, what I appreciate from this project is because by engaging the youths on coffee, although they're initially seeing yung economic or yung practical side of it, eventually nakikita din nila how this coffee project is interconnecting to forest conservation and how forest conservation is interconnecting to addressing climate change and how addressing climate change directly impacts their livelihood and or their future. And so it's really a powerful one for me seeing this kind of engagement or seeing this kind of changing mindset or behavior among our youth thanks to our coffee project. Right. So how do we do this? How do we do the Rainforest Coffee Project? Well, it's a combination of different farming practices. We're implementing permaculture, agroforestry, afforestation, and other even salt as slope agricultural land technology. So it's a diverse system that we are implementing, but basically the goal really is to harmonize whatever practice or whatever agricultural system that we have with the setting of the rainforest. Most of the farm, by the way, is 2/3 of it is rainforest. So what we are really doing is to first plant on areas that have been previously cleared. And that's where we are implementing this agroforestry stuff. But on existing forests, we just do some minimal modification. For example, we trim we trim some parts of the forest where we plant the coffee and remove some trees, some small trees to give way to light penetration for it to be able to reach our coffee plant, right? So for this part, we use established forests as shade to coffee, and we incorporate native trees as pioneer crops with coffee on previously cleared areas. So we are not doing away with the forest again. We are working with the forest to be able to plant coffee, right? And eventually on areas that have been denuded, we first plant coffee and then we integrate native species until eventually it becomes a forest alongside with the existing or established forests, right? So we incorporate different shade, cover crop, and coffee species or varieties on a plot to align with agroforestry and afforestation principles. As I mentioned, some forests of the farm have been removed in the past to plant citrus. We started with citrus as our crop at the farm, but then I really saw the devastation or the impact it has not only on the soil but also on our family health. And so I realized that we should not continue with this. We should take a breather and have coffee instead as our crop at present. And that's what we are doing now. Although we are not totally doing away with citrus, rather we are incorporating coffee and other species on this particular plant. So eventually we hope that by doing this, we'll be able to create more rainforest starting with coffee. So if you can see the picture, hindi siya obvious, pero you can see some coffee, you can see some citrus, some native trees, they're slowly evolving to become a forest. And we know, na medyo selective din kami when it comes to doing this. Say we choose the species that have beneficial effect for every species, and especially the coffee that we have. And we don't. In fact, we also remove some species that were accidentally planted because we don't know the impact. Like, for example, mahogany. We know the allelopathy effect that it has, and so unfortunately, we had to remove mahogany to give way to native species instead, right? Right. So, if you can see the picture, that's our farm. Can you see the arrow from my screen? Hello.
Yes po, yes. Nakikita po namin.
Yeah. So, this is the farm. It's very sloping. You really literally have to climb, how do you call that? To climb your way up to be able to reach some sides of the farm from 1,300 meters to 1,500 meters above sea level. So it's more than 60% rainforest, and most of it we don't intend to modify or even plant coffee with. We retain it as such because we know how critical it is to ensuring the overall stability of our farm, especially when typhoons strike. So we just identified some areas here, especially those that have been previously planted with citrus as our plot for planting coffee, right? Okay, so we only apply organic or natural-based inputs at the farm. We also develop fertilizers using materials and microorganisms that are indigenous to the area. In fact, one technology that we are working with now is Jadam, which is Korean-based technology. It's still on the experimental phase, but we did have applied this technology multiple times and really saw how it contributed to the growth of our experimental coffee plant. For Jadam, we only use plants that are native to the area, and we get only microorganisms from the tallest trees, from the oldest trees at the farm, because these are the most effective when it comes to really optimizing the benefits that Jadam organic solutions can really give. In some areas of the farm, we don't have to apply inputs. Why? Because the soil is that fertile. In fact, if you dig on some parts of the plant, the topsoil is more than a meter high. That's how fertile it is thanks to the forest. So yeah, essentially, we let the rainforest do its job. The birds feed on harmful pests and insects. The tall trees protect the coffee from too much rains and sunlight. The surrounding forests promote healthy soil and encourage indigenous microorganisms. Certain plants from the forest are also resources of nutrients for the coffee. Although we've specified some of the practices that we do, really more essentially it all goes back to really systemizing our practices according to the ways of the rainforest. Yes, we may be doing a lot of activities to fertilize the soil, to to hasten or perhaps to improve the productivity of our coffee plants. But eventually, we want that as we grow forests with our coffee, we don't have to do all these practices already. Eventually, it's the forest that's taking care of the coffee. At the same time, we, the farmers, take care of the forest to take care of our coffee. So we basically want to create this coffee forest ecosystem that doesn't have to require a lot of human intervention in order to thrive. Because we've seen this in other we've seen this in models elsewhere, and it's possible. So if it's possible there, I believe that it's all the more possible in Barley Mountain Province and elsewhere. Right. So we started in 2021, although there are already existing coffee trees in our land that our father planted way back in the 2010. And in fact, these are the plants that gave us the most harvest since 2021 as well. So from 2021, we planted more than 2,700 Arabica coffee with at least, no, it's not five, but 10 varieties, such as Typica, Bourbon, Catimor, Caturra, and Pacamara. And this year, we'll be planting our experimental geisha, which is like the most expensive coffee in the world, but we'll try to see how it works at the farm. So again, we're planting a variety of coffee because we just want to see which variety really is fit for this slot, which variety is ideal for rainforest ecosystem, etc. And definitely will be, as we go on with this, we'll be prioritizing certain varieties only to plant at the farm. Right. So we harvested at least 100 kilos of coffee cherries, including coffee trees planted by our father. So again, mainly our harvest when we started is because of the existing coffee trees that we have. And these are Typica Arabica, which are like which are like one of the most rarest varieties in the Philippines, although they were the first to be introduced. And these are considered heirloom in our locality or in the north in general. So for us, this is really a relief. This is really a joy for us as farmers because for that period of time, we're already seeing results of what we are doing. And in fact, from on 2022, we also had our first harvest of coffee from our Catimor Arabica. And when we went back, we had our boot camp there last weekend, and we really saw more coffee trees that have bloom, and we're confident that this will be able to yield us more cherries for this year and next year. I hope makatikim din kayo sa coffee namin. So just message us on our Facebook page and we'll get in touch. Or if you want, you can also visit yung farm namin to try picking the coffee for yourself. Yeah, so of course, since we started, we have involved more than 20 youths and capacitated them on environmental stewardship through sustainable coffee production. So really, this is what's more heartening for me because we are seeing not just the coffee cherry, but also the awakening of some of our fellow youths when it comes to environmental stewardship, and especially that they are indigenous and that there's the need to revitalize their identity, their value system as stewards of the land, of the forest. So we also showcase our coffee on different local to international events such as Manila Coffee Festival, the Specialty Coffee Association of Japan 2023, the Philippine Coffee Festival, and the Indigenous Slow Food Exhibit Taiwan with our team of youth coffee lovers and advocates. And in fact, there have been a lot of inquiries of where can we get your coffee? Can you supply us this, that, and that? But the problem is we don't have supply because we are just starting. And that's really, I see it as a promising thing to do, especially for the youth, because so many people demand good, organic, naturally grown coffee, but we just don't have the supply. And thanks to these kinds of activities, we're able to reach more people who are also passionate in drinking coffee or sharing the coffee experience with other people. Yeah. And so, yeah, we had this, our coffee was showcased in Japan. We had this exhibit in Taiwan, and we're really seeing this connect with other sectors, like the hospitality sector, for example, in Taiwan, who wanted to collaborate with us to showcase sustainable coffee. But then again, we don't have enough coffee to be able to showcase with them. And so we also conducted the first of a series of barley grain forest coffee boot camps in partnership with Vera Coffee and Farm to Cup Benguet. This was during the last weekend, and we just had 5 participants, but we have at least 8 volunteers. All of them are youths who really came just because they want to experience what rainforest coffee look like, how are we doing it, and how can this really contribute to sustainability in general. And this will be the first of more boot camps to come to for us to capacitate our fellow youths and other coffee enthusiasts about the importance of rainforest coffee. Right, so we have also been featured on various digital and print platforms, like for example, Farm to Table. But for me, what's important here is that our advocacy on preserving the rainforest to produce quality coffee is being amplified, especially to the consumers of Metro Manila and other urban areas in the Philippines. And hopefully, we could elicit more support on organic, naturally grown coffee. It's our hope that through these platforms, more people will drink not just coffee, but coffee that has conscience, that has social and environmental conscience. Right. So we've also noticed the improving biodiversity at the farm and its surrounding rainforest. For example, we are seeing honey. We have stingless honey. We have this. I don't really know the scientific name of this honey, but it's a common honey in our locality. So this one, when we saw this, there's that immediate reaction na, uy, kunin natin yan, ang daming hanya kasi mukhang busog yan, ang laki. But then I've thought na, ay, wag muna, because we know that coffee flowers are about to come, and we need these bees to pollinate the flowers of our coffee. So, hindi namin to kinuha. We just let them stay there and just be bees at the farm. And now we've seen the wholesome blooming of our coffee trees, and we're thinking, maybe because these bees were there to help with the pollination. Right. So so much has been said. What do we do now moving forward? Of course, basically it's to continue planting coffee, encourage more community members to plant coffee following sustainability principles. Once we've seen really the impact of what we are doing at our pilot farm, we hope to be able to share this with other farmers, not just in our area, but also in other provinces. Like, for example, we are working with my brother Neo in Kabayan, Benguet at the foot of Mount Pulag to be able to also restore what used to be conventional vegetable farm into an agroforestry coffee using species that are there. Right. So we want to replicate the model farm on other areas in the Cordillera region, collaborate with local government officials to develop other programs or projects to strengthen rainforest protection and preservation. And for this part, we are particularly eyeing agritourism, ecotourism to give added livelihood or financial support to our community members who are engaged on this project. So we also want to organize more interactive activities such as boot camps to the farm to raise awareness on the importance of forest preservation and sustainable agriculture. And of course, with our love, with our heart, you are most welcome to also participate in these activities. If you want, you can contact me. If you want to take a break from the city hustle to come to the farm, just experience nature and plant coffee with us. Yes, so again, thank you so much everyone for listening. It's really an honor sharing our experiences, our farm with you, and I hope that you'll be one in us in championing organic, naturally grown rainforest coffee, because this is not just about Barlig, but really this is about the entire country and beyond, benefiting from the restoration of our forests. So,
Maraming salamat, Daniel, Mr. Matches. Ang dami naming natutunan. Sayang ko lang ang oras, pero bumalik ka ha. Meron kasing pwede bang ilagay mo na lang dun sa group chat, sa chat box, yung iyong contact numbers, kasi may nagtatanong paano daw makaka-order ng iyong barley coffee, no? So, pakilagay mo na lang sa chat box, and we hope to hear from you again soon. So, maraming salamat, Bigyan naman natin ng isang masigabong online palakpak ang ating guest na si Mr. Daniel Jason Matches. Siguro kung may time pa tayo mamaya, pwede tayong bumalik ulit sa iyo. But for now, another exciting topic na naman tayo, no? Kasi yung sobrang init ngayon, nakakaapekto to sa mga ating gawain at sa ating mga kalusugan. Kaya tamang-tama na mapakinggan natin yung topic na pinamagatang Summer is Getting Hotter, a glimpse of the Philippine Heat Index. Ang ating pong pangalawang panauhin ay nagtapos ng Bachelor of Science in Physics with specialization in Computer Application at kanyang Masters of Science in Physics din ay from the De La Salle University. Ayan po, nagtapos po siya ng kanyang Doctor of Philosophy in Atmospheric Physics from Shiba University in Japan. Napakarami na po niyang peer-reviewed journals, no? Actually, a total of 46 peer journals. Ang kanyang topic na kinabibilangan ay yung aerosol science, cloud characterization, atmospheric environment, and geosciences at iba't iba pa. No? So, ano masasabi mo, Mark? Ipakilala mo na.
Ay, nako, Miss Da, totoo lang, kulang ang oras natin para banggitin pa yung mga achievements ng ating next speaker.
Yes.
Ang ating pong second guest for this afternoon, kaya friends, let's just all listen to the head of Atmospheric Physics Laboratory of the Institute of Environmental Science and Meteorology at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Please, let's all welcome Dr. Jerry Bactasa.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, sir. Go ahead.
Let me just share my screen. So, unang-una, maraming salamat sa invitation to present this. I'm not really sure what to present, pero hopefully may matutunan kayo. So again, I'm Jerry Bactasa with IESM of UP Diliman. I'm on Facebook and Twitter, Weather Manila. So, yung pag-usapan natin ngayon, no, so bakit bakit umiinit ang isang lugar? And siguro matatanong nyo, bakit napakainit sa mga certain places in the Philippines, like NCR, Tuguegarao, dyan kadalasan nakukuha yung pinakamataas na temperatura or dagupan. Tignan natin yung mga trends, global and local temperature trends, kung ano na nangyayari in the past decades at may influence ba dito ang climate change at saka El Nino. And finally, explain ko lang yung heat index, kung ano ba siya. So, unang-una, bakit nagiging mainit sa isang lugar? So, dahil sa araw. Kung natapatan tayo ng araw, iinit ang kalupaan. Or kahit na tubig yan, iinit yung tubig na yan. And once the surface of Earth heats up because of solar radiation, yung air right above the surface will also heat up. Kaya nagiging mainit tayo. So that's one way na para uminit ang isang lugar. Pangalawang paraan para uminit ang isang lugar ay kahit na walang gaanong araw, kahit na cloudy conditions, pero sa kabilang banda, sa lugar na katabi ng lugar na kung nasaan ka, no, kung mainit yung hangin doon, pwede siyang mag-move papunta sa'yo. Di ba? Pag nasa mall tayo, pag bumukas, malapit ka sa pinto ng entrance, bumukas, mararamdaman mo yung init na hangin galing sa labas, pumapasok. So, pwedeng gumalaw ang hangin. So, yun yung tinatawag na advection. So, again, ulitin ko lang, dalawang paraan para uminit ang kapaligiran. Natatapatan ka ng araw, iinit yung paligid mo. Or may mainit na hangin na umaandar papunta sa'yo. So, yun yung way ng pag-init. So, hindi ko na di-discuss tong mathematical proof, no? Pang ibang lecture yan. So, next na siguro madalas na tanongin, bakit may mga lugar sa Pilipinas na napakainit? So, actually, di pare-pareho yung temperatura sa iba't ibang lugar sa Pilipinas. So, kung titignan natin, no, before that, kadalasan yung month ng March, April, May. So tinawag nating MAM yan. March, April, May ay napakataas ng araw kasi ibig sabihin nakatapat yung araw sa atin. So kakatapos lang ng spring equinox noong March 20. So after that, longer daytime compared to nighttime. Unang-una yon. So mas matagal yung pag-init ng araw. Pangalawa, dahil nandito tayo sa may equatorial region, essentially nakatapat yung araw sa atin during around the month of April. Kaya napakainit din kumpara sa other regions of the Earth. Also, no, pag tinignan natin tong mapa na to, so mapapansin nyo agad na yung mas madidilim na kulay, yun yung mga mas may init. Nandito siya sa mga gitna ng plains. So tulad ng Cagayan Plain or sa Central Luzon Plain. Pero pag tinignan natin dito sa mga coastal regions, hindi ganun kainit. Ang hangin, by the way, tuwing March, April, May, nanggagaling from the Pacific Ocean. And contrary to sa paniniwala ng karamihan ng tao, yung hangin sa Pacific Ocean is warm but it's not exactly hot. So dito, makikita natin yung hangin pagka nag-move siya papuntang Pilipinas from Pacific Ocean to the Philippines, may mga nangyayari kaya napapainit yung hangin. At ang isang main reason bakit umiinit ay yung influence ng Sierra Madre Mountain Range. So yung influence ng bundok. So isipin natin na ito yung Pacific Ocean dito sa right side, and then ito yung Sierra Madre Mountain Range, at dito naman yung sa NCR halimbawa. So meron tayong warm air. Warm air, isipin nyo, nasa around 28, 29, 30 degrees Celsius. Magmo-move yan papuntang Pilipinas at mafo-force yan ng Sierra Madre Mountain Range na umakyat. So habang umaakyat yung hangin, lumalamig. Kaya mas malamig kapag nasa mataas na lugar katulad ng Baguio or Mountain Province dahil sa lumalamig ang hangin habang umaakyat. So habang umaakyat ito, being forced by the mountain, lumalamig siya at darating siya sa point wherein sa peak ng mountain, pinakamalamig. So dahil sa nasa peak na siya, pwede na siyang lumusot papunta sa kabila ng bundok. Pero bago niya gawin yon, clouds form. At pag-form ng clouds, nagpapainit ito ng hangin because of yung tinatawag na condensational heating. Kasi ang tubig kasi may tinatawag na latent heat na pagka na-release yung latent heat, pinapainit niya yung kapaligiran. So itong hangin na to, pag talon niya sa kabilang side ng bundok, umiinit siya ng bahagya because of the cloud formation. So uminit siya ng bahagya, ang ngayon gagawin niya, bababa na siya papuntang Metro Manila. So pag bumaba ito, actually nasa gitna pa lang siya ng pagbaba niya, warm na siya dahil napainit because of the cloud formation. At pagbaba dito sa kabilang side, mas mainit na siya kumpara sa kapag nasa Pacific Ocean siya. So sabi ko kanina, no, sa Pacific Ocean would be around 28, 29, 30 degrees Celsius. Pagdating dito sa kabila, aabot siya ng mga 35 degrees Celsius. So up to around 5 to even 10 degrees Celsius hotter dahil sa epekto ng Sierra Madre Mountain Range. Bukod dito sa itong umiinit na hangin na to na nagro-roll down of the Sierra Madre Mountain Range, and by the way, ang tawag sa kanya ay phone wind. Wala ring clouds dito sa Metro Manila. Bakit? Kasi lahat ng clouds naipit siya dito sa Sierra Madre Mountain Range. So makes it cloud-free condition over Metro Manila. Kaya gano'n din, nagpapainit. So bukod doon sa nagpapainit, sabi ko kanina, diba, dalawang reason bakit iinit. Nagpapainit because of the sun, because of urbanization din ng Metro Manila, and also because of the hot winds rolling down the mountains of Sierra Madre from the east. So ito yung reason bakit mainit sa Metro Manila, sa Tugigaraw, dahil Sierra Madre Mountain Range din, di ba, ang nasa east ng Tugigaraw, yung mga places like Dagupan or Cabanatuan, may init dito sa mga lugar na to. So kung titignan natin sa satellite image, this was several days ago, so makikita natin na nandito nagagaling hangin from the Pacific Ocean, and dito sa Sierra Madre Mountain Range, dyan nabubuo yung clouds, tapos nag-i-stay siya dyan. So yung formation of clouds na yan actually nagpapainit pagdating sa west side ng Sierra Madre Mountain Range. So kung titingnan natin ang temperatura, for example, ng Infanta, which is on the other side of the Sierra Madre Mountain Range, Tanay, which is on the Sierra Madre Mountain Range sa isang Metro Manila, at saka sa Science Garden, which is sa office ng Pag-asa sa Quezon City, makikita natin na sa Infanta, the temperature is around 30, 31 degrees Celsius. Pag akyat ng Tanay, pwede siyang bumaba up to 25 degrees Celsius kasi ang Tanay is around 600 meters high. No? Kaya pag umakyat, lalamig doon. At pagbaba niya rito, biglang nag-shoot up to 35, 36 degrees Celsius pagdating sa Metro Manila. And other than that, yung araw pa na yung radiation na nakasinag sa Metro Manila or other parts of Western Luzon, yun yung nagpapainit dito sa mga lugar na to. Globally, there are different trends. So pag tinignan natin buong mundo from 1890 up to last year, 2023, makikita natin na may mga ups and downs from year to year, pero makikita natin na overall there's an increase. And this is because of greenhouse gases. So there's no other explanation that can be used to explain essentially yung increasing temperatures ng mundo, no? Other than greenhouse, yung increasing concentrations of greenhouse gases. Pag tinignan natin yung globally, hindi pare-pareho yung pag-akyat ng temperatura. So mas mabilis ang pag-akyat ng temperatura sa North Pole dahil sa pagtunaw ng mga yelo, nag-accelerate yung pag-init doon. Good thing dito sa, well, hindi good thing kasi umaakyat pa rin yung temperatura, pero mas less yung pag-akyat ng temperatura dito sa tropics. So dito sa atin, around a little over half a degree in the past 100 years yung inakyat ng temperature. Still considerable. Kaya totoong umiinit. Pag tinignan naman natin yung daily surface temperature ng mundo. So ito yung iba't ibang taon, yung gray, itong orange na to ay last year, tapos ito naman for this year, yung kulay itim na bold. So obviously nakikita natin na mas mataas tong this year, unprecedented kumpara sa all other years from several decades ago. Pag tinignan natin yung tropics lang, so sa tropics lang, which is where we are, makikita din natin na unprecedented itong taon na to. And dalawa yung reason dyan. So one of the reasons is because of yung current El Nino natin. Although pahina na si El Nino right now, no? So isang reason yon, pero ang another reason is essentially because of the rising global temperatures because of the greenhouse gases. Pag tinignan naman natin ang karagatan, so ang dagat, napakainit particularly sa Atlantic Ocean. So since last year, uminit siya ng napakainit and exceeded yung mga projections sa mga models. Kaya ngayon, kailangan natin isipin ulit kung bakit sobrang taas and hindi to expected ng mga climate models sa ginagamit natin. Again, yung bold na itim na yan is for this year. Hindi pa natatapos, obviously nasa April pa lang tayo, pero makikita natin na sobrang taas kumpara sa any other year na may record tayo. Dito naman sa Pilipinas, so there are several studies na papakita ko. Una-una kay Cinco et al. So si Ma'am Telma Cinco is from Pag-asa. So yung paper nila showing that there's increases nationwide. Lahat ng stasyon sa Pilipinas, Pag-asa station sa Pilipinas, umaakyat. However, yung pag-akyat ng daytime temperature is lower compared sa pag-akyat ng nighttime temperature. So ibig sabihin nito, ang nighttime mas nagiging mainit and ang reason nito mainly is because of urbanization. Ang daytime increase in temperature, ang pinaka-explanation dito ay yung greenhouse gases. Meron ding paper si Dr. Manalo also of Pag-asa recently showing that with different methodology, ganoon din, umaakyat din yung temperature ng yung daytime temperature, nighttime temperature, average temperature, even yung difference between nighttime and daytime, ito naman yon, bumababa. So nagiging magkalapit yung nighttime temperature and daytime temperature dahil nga sa umaakyat yung nighttime, umaakyat din yung daytime pero mas mabilis pag-akyat ng nighttime. No? So nakita nila na pagka mas maraming urban region sa isang stasyon, kung mas maraming urban area around it, mas mabilis yung pag-akyat. So, ibig sabihin, urbanization ang isa sa pinakamalaking bagay na nagpapaakyat ng temperatura sa Pilipinas. But that doesn't mean na walang climate change or global warming dahil may effect pa rin siya during daytime temperature. Dito naman isang paper ko from 2019 for Metro Manila. And this is from 1900 to 2020, if I'm not mistaken, or 2018 na. So, 2018, yeah. So 118 years and makikita natin na yung minimum temperature, that means yung nighttime temperature, itong blue na to, increases faster compared to the daytime temperature, which is the red. So ganoon din, Metro Manila, mas malaking epekto ng urbanization kumpara sa global warming, but nevertheless may effect ang global warming. So twice as fast umakyat ang temperatura ng gabi kumpara sa temperatura ng umaga. So moving on to the heat index. So ano ba yung heat index? So may mga ibang environmental, so other than environmental temperature. So temperature, ito yung init na tinatawag natin. May mga ibang factors wherein nagiging iba yung perception natin ng pagkainit or pagkalamig. So our bodies lose heat because of convection to ambient temperature. So ang katawan natin naturally mainit di ba? We are at around 37 degrees Celsius kung wala tayong lagnat, no? So itong 37 degrees Celsius na to, ibig sabihin yung balat natin mainit. May thin film of hot air na nasa ibabaw ng balat natin. Kung malamig, so linagay ko rito yung wind chill. Kung masyadong malamig, tumataas yung buhok natin para matrap itong heat na to sa skin natin. Pero kung may malakas na hangin, so itong thin film of hot air na to, matatangay. So mawawala tong thin film, mas lalo tayong giniginaw. So yung tinatawag na wind chill. Kaya sa wind chill, bukod sa malamig, tapos malakas ang hangin, mas nahihirapan tayong mag-cope dahil sa tinatangay yung thin film of heat na nasa above our skin eh. Pero hindi ito yung problema natin ngayon. Obviously, problema natin is the heat. But nevertheless, it's the same. So kahit na mainit, dahil yung katawan natin is at 37 degrees Celsius, may thin film of hot air na nasa skin natin ngayon. And ang gusto natin is matanggal yung thin film of hot air kapag mainit yung panahon, di ba? And ang natural way for our bodies to do that is by sweating. Kaya linagay ko dito si Jordan Peele na pinagpapawisan. Dahil ang pawis, kapag pinagpawisan tayo, yung pawis mag-evaporate. Pag nag-evaporate siya, kukunin niya yung heat ng skin natin, aalis siya, mapapalitan siya ng cold air from the environment. So yun ang purpose ng pawis natin. Bakit tayo pinagpapawisan? And at the same time, di ba, bakit gusto natin tumapat sa ventilador kapag mainit? Dahil yung thin film na to, pag tinapatan natin ng fan, natatanggal yung thin film, and just like yung sa wind chill, nagiginawin ka lalo, dito sa atin, di ba, mainit, matatanggal tong thin film, mas magiging malelesen yung pagkainit na nararamdaman natin. And so yung evaporation of sweat. So ang sweat nag-activate yan kapag mainit ang katawan. Pag nag-evaporate siya, it actually converts yung tinatawag na sensible heat. Sensible meaning yung nasa-sense natin na init, kino-convert niya into latent heat in the evaporation of water or sweat from liquid to water vapor form. And ito yung, kumbaga, natural way ng katawan natin to cool us down. So there are, hindi to bagong idea. No? In fact, siguro mapapansin nyo sa mga news lately, meron mga naglalagay ng water sprinkler sa bubong, which is a very good idea kasi pag binasa natin yung bubong, mag-evaporate yung tubig, mapapalamig yung bubong, lalamig yung bahay. Yung ventilador nga, kailangan natin siya dahil sa tinatanggal niya yung thin film of heat dito sa atin, so we feel less hot. Yung mga evaporative cooling, di ba? So ang ginagawa lang dito ay sinasawsaw sa tubig, yung siguro parang may tela, sasawsaw mo sa tubig, and then habang nag-evaporate yung tubig, kinukuha mo yung hangin, supposedly mas malamig siya. And you don't have to have much energy use dahil sa evaporation ng tubig yung ginagamit. Ganito rin yun sa mga mist fan. Yung mist fan, dahil sa napakaliit na mga butil ng tubig, mas mabilis siya mag-evaporate. So paglabas pa lang niya sa mist, as a mist, mag-evaporate siya, tinatangay ng hangin, so supposedly mas malamig yung hangin. And even yung refrigerator natin, pero ang refrigerator hindi tubig ang gamit eh. Freon yung gamit niya. But it's the same concept. Paano napapalamig ng refrigerator yung hangin sa loob? By evaporation, evaporative cooling. So by evaporating, again, yung sensible heat na convert siya into latent heat, natatanggal ngayon yung init sa paligid. So, okay, sweat. Pinagpapawisan tayo, okay yan. So as long as we sweat and then the sweat evaporates, so ito yung importante, dapat mag-evaporate yung pawis natin. Then we cool down. But the thing is, ang Pilipinas nasa humid na environment. So pagka humid yung environment, ibig sabihin marami ng water vapor na nag-e-exist sa paligid natin. So pag mas maraming water vapor nag-e-exist sa paligid natin, mas mahirap mag-evaporate ang isang tubig. So parang ano yan parang sponge. Di ba ang sponge kapag tuyo, pwede maka-absorb ng maraming tubig. Pero pag sponge, pagka dump na siya, and then you try to absorb water na spill mo or what, ang mangyari is mahirap nang mag-absorb yung tubig. No? So ganito rin yung atmosphere natin. Pagka masyadong humid, mahirap mag-absorb ng nag-evaporate na ano. So pinakita ko lang dito na ang tubig at saka ang air, once na pag wala pang water vapor, may mga tubig talaga, may mga water molecules sa makakatakas sa liquid water and turn into water vapor. And habang parami water vapor, pahirap ng pahirap maging water vapor ang isang liquid na tubig. So in humid environments, sweat has difficulty evaporating. So they remain as sweat, as liquid. So no evaporation means no cooling. Kasi walang transfer of latent heat. So we just feel sweaty, we feel hot, tawag natin sticky, uncomfortable, at 'di ba? Iba-iba pang terms na ginagamit natin. Pero ang nangyari is napakainit, pinagpawisan tayo, tapos we stay with the sweat. So hindi na mawala yung pawis natin. So that's where the concept of heat index or thermal comfort comes in. So, ibig sabihin nito dahil sa mainit, pinagpawisan tayo, pero hindi naman nag-evaporate yung pawis natin. So ngayon, ang feeling natin, mas mainit pa lalo dahil sa hindi tayo naku-cool down. So there are actually many forms of thermal comfort metric or paano natin tignan ng thermal comfort. So meron dito yung dew point temperature halimbawa. So that's another way of measuring water vapor wherein kung 20 degrees ang dew point temperature and below, it's regarded as comfortable. Pag hindi naman, pag mas mataas, then hindi tayo komportable. Meron din yung tinatawag na wet bulb temperature na sinasabi na around 31 to 35 degrees Celsius na wet bulb temperature. So hindi to yung temperatura na mini-measure ng isang thermometer. So these are other ways of measuring na hindi ko na ma-discuss, no? But anyway, other ways of measuring temperature na 31 to 35, that's the maximum humans can endure. May relative humidity rin wherein nagbabago-bago dahil sa pag mas mataas yung relative humidity, mas mahirap kasi mag-evaporate ang sweat. So itong heat index na to, nanggaling to sa isang paper ni Stedman. So sinasabi ni Stedman na dahil sa, ang gamit niyang term ay sultriness. So dahil sa very moist na yung hangin, mahirap na mag-evaporate yung pawis natin. And for that reason, we feel even hotter. So, sinasabi niya na yung heat index, yun yung parang nararamdaman natin na mas mainit. Pero hindi lang to tungkol sa moisture. So, sinulat ko lang dito kung ano-anong mga ibang factors para maramdaman na, dahil iba-iba yung pakiramdam natin eh. Isipin niyo na lang, di ba? Kapag nakahiga lang kayo, nasa duyan, just like Quantaman, kumpara sa nagja-jogging kayo, same heat index. Diba you will feel hotter pag nagja-jogging kayo kaysa sa pag nakahiga kayo. Or even simpler, kapag nasa ilalim ka ng puno, compared sa tao na nasa ilalim ng sikat ng araw, same heat index. Obviously, yung person na wala sa ilalim ng puno, mas mainit yung pakiramdam kumpara sa di ba? So yung heat index actually, hindi pa rin siya totally nag-explain ng pakiramdam natin dahil sa maraming factors tulad nung yung suot natin, kung ang suot mo cotton, polyester, o yung mga dry fit would also be different yung napakiramdam natin, no? Yung ventilador, kung may hangin or wala, and so on. That will all factor in kung ano yung nararamdaman nating init. So to show you again, no, this is for this afternoon. So makikita niyo dito sa eastern coastal regions, nasa 28 degrees lang ang Baler, Infanta, itong Aurora, Quezon, not Quezon. Quezon pala, no? And dito sa eastern side ng Isabela, so below 30 degrees Celsius. Pag akyat ng bundok, pagbaba niya, makikita niya Tugigaraw 36, Quezon City 36. Tapos habang itong sa Cabanatuan 36, pero habang umaandar yung hangin na yan dahil sa napakainit ng lupa, lalo pang painit na painit, pagdating dito sa bandang Dagupan, umaabot hanggang more than 36, 37, 38, pwede siyang umabot. So it's about the mountains, it's about the flow of the wind, it's also about yung relative humidity in a way. So to summarize this second to the last slide, no? So yung init factor or feels like or yung heat index, these are measures of thermal comfort. Pero pwede natin tawaging thermal discomfort, no? So thermal comfort is a condition of mind which expresses satisfaction with thermal environment. So it's not measurement of temperature. It's how we feel. So it's about mind natin. So mechanisms of heat wave, bakit ba mainit dito, is different from the heat waves na maririnig nyo sa Japan or sa Paris or sa kung ano-anong mid-latitude countries. So iba yung dito, talagang mainit lang talaga ng March, April, May dahil sa nakatapat yung araw, walang clouds, and then nandyan yung bundok to essentially heat up everything even more. Thermal discomfort can lead to more dangerous heat stress. Of course, may dangers talaga yung pagiging napakainit. Also, yung IQ o yung cognitive function natin, bumababa habang tumataas ang temperatura. So habang mas mainit, yung paano mag-work yung brain natin, bumababa. So para sa mga bata na pumapasok, di ba? I think it's a It's a very important factor. So yung March, April, May is the driest and hottest season of the country regardless of ENSO. So naririnig ko kasi na itong tagtuyot dahil sa dahil sa El Nino, ganun-ganon. Pero hindi dahil sa El Nino ang tagtuyot natin ngayon na every March, April, May tagtuyot. So napapalala lang ng El Nino or La Nina, but every year we should expect na mainit yung panahon, konti ang ulan. And finally, sa tingin ko, nagpapagulo ang heat index. So to lessen the ambiguity, I think we should simply use temperature. Dahil sa may mga feeling ko ang perception ng tao sa temperatura ay nagbabago na. Dahil kung sasabihin ko sa inyo, in the past week, kung nandito kayo sa Metro Manila, ang temperature natin is around 35 tuwing alas 2 ng hapon. Diba? Baka hindi kayo maniwala dahil sa pagtinignan nyo sa news, laging sinasabi nasa 42, 43 and so on. Pero actually 35 lang yung natin. And nagbabago, na-skew yung perception dahil sa paggamit ng heat index. And besides, diba, yung heat index is about temperature and humidity. Yung humidity during March, April, May doesn't vary a lot. So that means that the heat index will be almost the same in terms of variability with actual temperature. But regardless of the measure that we're using, months of MAM is the hottest dry season for the country. You should stay hydrated, avoid outdoor activities, especially during midday. And at the same time, conserve water dahil ito yung tagtuyot natin, and we have to conserve water dahil sa around June pa darating yung most of the rain na ine-expect natin. And expect hot environment until around third week of May. Salamat.
Ayan, maraming salamat. Ako, bigyan natin ng isang online palakpak si Dr. Bagtasa. No? Equally po talaga, both our topics na na-discuss ngayong hapon na to ay talagang very interesting. At talagang yung isa, promoting syempre the conservation of environment at at the same time, pinopromote din kung ano yung coffee na endemic din sa kanilang lugar. And then si Dr. Jerry Pagtasa, inexplain sa atin, ako, wag din tayo masyado matakot dun sa heat index na sinasabi, no? Pero ayun na nga, na-explain niya na syempre kung ikaw ay mas maraming movement, mas marami kang pawis, at kung ikaw naman ay medyo laid back, medyo mas malalamigan ka ng konti. Pero yung mga sinabi kanina ni Dr. Bagtasa, no? Meron siyang mga equations doon na talagang sabi, hindi na niya explain sa atin dahil talaga namang hindi ko nga mabasa ang mga number na kulot. Maraming pong salamat. Naku, tingnan mo nga, yung 1.5 hours na yun, napagkasya natin ng dalawang equally interesting at syak talagang very informative na topics, And maraming salamat for the time that you have given us, Dr. Bagtasa, and of course si Daniel Jason Matias, Alam mo, kanina tinitingnan kita nung pag-open ko ng Zoom. Kilala ko to, nga pala, Future Earth. Naku, nakalimutan ko na. Anyway, maraming salamat. Sabi ko, saan pa kami nakita nito ni Daniel? Maraming salamat, and we hope na, Dr. Bagtasa, sana meron pang third time kasi nakakadalawa ka na. Third, ikaw din, Daniel. Alam mo, ang dami mo pang gustong sabihin, pero kulang ang oras. Please come back kung meron kang mga achievements or accomplishments na gusto mong i-share sa amin. So, in behalf of the Future Earth Philippines, the National Academy of Science and Technology, ang National Research Council of the Philippines, and of course the UNITSEA na Ateneo de Manila University. We would like to thank everybody again for listening, watching ang ating SDG Action Hour 69th episode. So, see you on Fridays ating 70th episode. Naku,
Wow,
malapit na
70th.
anniversary na natin, di ba? Thank you so much. Nako, thank you po, and for the time that you have given us. Thank you sa ating mga tagapakinig sa Facebook Live, at mapapanood nyo ang inyong mga sarili sa YouTube, Dr. Bagtasa, and also Daniel Jason Matias. Makikita nyo ang inyong sarili at mapapanood nyo sa YouTube. See you again on Friday. Bye-bye!
Bye-bye!
Thank you!
Maraming salamat!
Thank you.